Whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. And I wish to welcome everybody to this webinar. It's an honor to be invited to lead the discussion on this issue of strengthening democracy in West Africa, the role of electoral commissions, national electoral commissions. I must thank the Center for Community Law for the invitation and for the opportunity to share ideas with colleagues on this very important issue. I'll just spend a few minutes. I see myself as a lead discussant, not really as a lecturer. I see myself as a lead discussant. So I'm sure several people here have better um, understanding of the subject matter than I do. Uh, I'm not an expert in international law. I've garnered some experience in election and the way electoral commissions work. That's about all I can say. So this paper this afternoon is divided into about 5, 6 sections. Starting with let me start with the outline. And basically, I'm going to talk about, do an introduction. What are we talking about when we say, and conceptualizing of the key terms, issues of, give you a bit of historical background. What is ECOWAS? What do we mean ECOWAS? ECOWAS is an economic committee of nations. And people don't associate ECOWAS with democracy per se, in the sense that it's an economic community. So we'll discuss that, the formulation of a foundation of ECOWAS, how it came about, and everything else. What little I know about that. Then we'll go next to discuss the framework, the legal framework governing democracy, governing elections, and governing electoral commissions in the sub-region. So that's the legal framework, sources of law. Then we go on to functions, powers, and roles of electoral commissions. And here I use the term electoral commissions interchangeably with EMBs, electoral management bodies. In context, we refer more to electoral management bodies because it might be commissions, it might be committees, it might be ad hoc bodies. So we call them electoral management bodies because they're responsible for the election management and conduct of elections in the sub-region. Then, so we discuss their powers, their functions, and the roles that they have to play in democracy. Then, what are the threats to our democracy? This, I think, it's an important consideration before we go to say what role they play. What are the threats? We'll consider some of those threats. It's not a catch-all. We know that they're numerous, and we'll discuss some of them with the call. And I'm sure, I hope participants will be able to chip in a lot more of those threats not covered by the lead paper. So I went on to discuss the approach of the Independent National Electoral Commission, a place I worked in for a few years, and also because we're in Nigeria, and we take that as a template because not all election management bodies are the same. So we'll take that as a template. What role has it played? How has it tried to address the issues that threats and the challenges that we've encountered? So, and then we go, are there ways forward? Are there things we can do better than we have done before? So that's basically the outline with people to discuss the next 20 minutes or thereabouts, or 30 minutes. So we know that ECOWAS, I think the organizers will give us more insights into that, but I know that it was formed in the Treaty of Lagos in 1975. And as a regional bloc, it really started off more or less as an economic bloc, not really a political bloc per se, a regional bloc of states in the West African sub-region. And the height of it all was that it had 15 members, made up mainly of the British and the French colonies. But later, the Portuguese colonies gained independence later in the period, and then joined welcome into ECOWAS. So, but those Portuguese territories, Cape Verde and what was the second one now? Cape Verde, anyway, I'll call the second one. But following military interventions in Mali, in Guinea in 2021, also in Guinea and Niger, we had issues with those three countries being members of the commission. They were first of all suspended, and subsequently, I think they opted to leave the union. You know, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso withdrew from the body, while Guinea-Bissau was suspended in 2023, following a coup there. It was literally in January 2026 after elections were conducted in Guinea and welcomed back to the fold. But Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso opted to form a regional, I think three of them are Sahel regional committee of sorts. So they're not really active members of ECOWAS again, but we are hoping that in view of the founding fathers' vision that the sub-region will come together as one when issues have been dealt with regarding their military interventions and governance in those countries. So let's discuss context. ECOWAS, as I said, is a regional body. But here we're not so concerned about the economic body and what it does. It has intervened in some things, and now we're more into consideration of the political issues that arise, democracy. So the democratic development relations to the countries of the West African sub-region. It's not so much the economic body, the 12 members, but as much as well reference made to all 15 original 15 members of the union. And then the second part of the topic I've been given to discuss is this unconstitutional changes of government. Also, unconstitutional changes, we tend to think of military coups. Yeah, of course, that's coup d'etats are an obvious extra constitutional change or unconstitutional change of governments, but we're not limiting it to military intervention. We're going to look at civilian coups. There are civilian coups. There are civilian interference with democratic governance. There are one-party states or attempts to go to one-party states. So those things are all there. So I think we have to look at. So it's a broad spectrum that we're going to deal with, not just limited to military interventions. So anything that is outside of the Constitution, in my paper, I referred to section 1, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitutional Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended. And if I may read from that, it says the country shall not be governed, nor shall any person or group of persons take control of the government of Nigeria or any part thereof, except in accordance with the provisions of this constitution. So basically, you must go through the constitution. If you're going to take over governance, if you're going to take over a part of the country, you must go in accordance, strictly in accordance with the supreme law of the land, which is the constitution, and similar to all supreme laws, all constitutions in the 15 members of the sub-region. So it's a broad discussion. Now, students of history and political science will know that the first wave of democracy came to West Africa with independence. Ghana and Guinea led the way. Ghana representing the British colonies in 1957, and Guinea also former French colony, gained independence in 1958. So they were the forerunners of that bandwagon of independent states. Nigeria, Sierra Leone, came in 1961, but Nigeria and 5 other countries gained independence in 1960. So the period between 1957 and 1964 was really the heyday of the independence movement and countries in sub-region gaining their independence. The Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, former Portuguese colonies, gained theirs in 1973 and 1975 respectively. And when they gained their independence, they also joined ECOWAS. The other country in the sub-region is Liberia. I think Liberia was the first independent African country in the continent because it gained its own independence in 1847. It was not really an American colony. It was getting independent from the society that founded Liberia. So it became an independent in 1847. So with this came, with this band of independent countries came democracy and democratic multi-party systems. And that's the first wave that we had of democracy in the sub-region. Now, setbacks came. Rather than consolidation and entrenchment of democracy, we saw quite a few setbacks in terms of military interventions and also one-party systems. And almost the whole of the West African sub-region were enmeshed in these the constitutions were amended or were suspended by military push. And so we had this democratic setback rather than consolidation. So one-party rule, as what I said, was one-party rule and the eclipse of democracy. And this generally was in the period of 1963 to about 1984, thereabouts. 1963, I think Togo was the first to experience a taste of military dictatorship and coup d'etat. 1963, Togo came under the military. And Ghana followed in 1966. Nigeria, of course, we seem to copy Ghana a lot. Nigeria followed in 1966 as well. Niger in 1974. Liberia had a taste of it in 1980 with Samuel. Burkina Faso in 1983. Guinea-Bissau in 1984. The other Guinea in 1984 as well. And Cape Verde in 1978. There's an attempt in Cape Verde, it wasn't successful. Now, there were several unsuccessful coups. In all the years concerned, there were quite a number of coups that were successful, but I've just listed some. A few of those ones that were successful between Nigeria and Ghana. And one party rule in the period was Senegal. Senegal had a relatively stable democracy, quite honestly, but it also underwent one party rule for a number of years. Benin Republic, of course, has military dictatorship, military coup, has had one party rule, Martin, Guinea, Togo, all of them have also experienced one party rule. So that was the position in the first 20 years of independence and the immediate post-independence period. Then we got into what we may term the second wave of democracy. And this, I think the origins of this would take into maybe 1990 or thereabouts, when we had a constitutional conference, an independent constitutional conference in the Republic of Benin, as small as it was, but they had an independent, a real proper constitutional conference, which most countries haven't actually experienced. And that led to democracy in that year, 1990. So also Cape Verde. These two countries paved the way for multi-party democracy in this ECOWAS sub-region. And Ghana, a lot of countries remember Nigeria in about that time, 1991, 1993, the Babangida transition tried to transit to civil rule, culminating in the Abiola election in 1993. But we also know what happened, and we suffered a setback. But I should point out, as most historians know, that in a period in the 70s, there were attempts to also go back to multi-party democratic rule. Nigeria and Ghana, again, were caught up in that, but it didn't last too long. You know, the General Rawlings coup and also the Buhari coup. So the Ali Shagari regime in Nigeria between 79 and 83, December 31st, 1983. So that was that setback. So until the second wave came, and Nigeria's history has really been checkered in the sense that we had issues from 1923, then the military came for a long period again, and it didn't conclude their transition until 1998, 1999. So in summary, failed elections and declares have led to political instability, led to strife, upheavals, and sometimes civil war in this region, because people there tend to underestimate what failed elections can do. Failed elections can be used in transitional periods to transit from dictatorship, from civil war, and multi-party democracy. But with all elections come fault lines. And when we have fault lines, elections tend to exacerbate some of those fault lines under religious grounds, under ethnic grounds, and such like things. Now, let me take Nigeria as another example. The failed elections were partly responsible for the first coup of 1966 because of, that's the era of pregnant women, ballot stuffing and stuff like that. It led to the coup led to counter coups, and that led to civil war. Cote d'Ivoire suffered civil war and similar fate. Liberia, those countries also. And you can trace quite a number of these to failed elections. That is why it's so important. That is the importance. This underscores the importance of the roles of elections and those who manage elections. So here we're currently with National Electoral Commissions, which manage elections. So their importance cannot be overstated in terms of their role in democracy. Elections themselves, or organizing periodic elections themselves, does not guarantee democracy. Well, it's an essential cornerstone of democracy, a start point of democracy. You have to build institutions, you have to do rule of law, checks and balances. Those are other important pillars. But if you have all those pillars in place and you don't have regular and periodic elections, then you don't have democracy. So at the core of every democratic society are elections. And who are those who conduct elections? This is the importance that I think in the wisdom of the organizers, you now see the correlation and the connection between elections and democracy and the role of election commissions to organize those elections. It's critical, and it's a very hard time to discuss some of these issues. So we're going to discuss that's the historical background, the legal framework. Now, what are the instruments? Where do we derive all laws regarding democracy and elections from? I will just quickly mention, because it's an international body organizing this. There are several sources of our laws, electoral laws. I started with international or global instruments, and dating back to 1948, all of us know the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR 1948. Important milestone was also achieved in 1966 with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. That's also a major source of our laws. And then there's also the term UN Resolution 55/96 on promoting and consolidating democracy. So these are not just the main instruments. These are the main instruments, but not the only instruments. There are quite a number of there are other treaties and obligations in international law, and it's so important to our growth and development. Then we came to the continental and regional instruments. In this case, you have to look at, of course, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the Banjul Charter of 1986, especially considering the West African thing as well. Although the capital of Africa, but of course West Africa, because of the Banjul in the Gambia, another bastion of democracy in West Africa, as well, very, very long period of stable democratic rule. So then there's the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, and also the ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance. So the ECOWAS, you see, as from emerging and coming out from just an economic bloc modeled on the European Union, as well, the European Commission, as it was called then, now more or less evolving to the European Union. It's now evolving. So, no, we must not only be talking of regional bloc. We must not only be talking of, when we talk of ECOWAS, we think of trade and free movements. But it has evolved to more than that. It's now directly involved in governance, now directly involved in democracy and growth of democracy. And that is why those countries where the recent coups, Niger, Chad, but were suspended, because it is more than just a regional economic body now. It's gone way, 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 way beyond that. And the protocol on democracy and good governance deal with members committing themselves to elections, to democracy and effective election to democracy. It just lays out some of the things that each member state has subscribed to. They've taken amongst themselves to subscribe to these, to commitment, having that serious firm commitment to democracy. And it applies to all member states of ECOWAS and was adopted and treated as a binding political and legal commitment we undertake. Nobody forced us to do it, but each member state undertook and gave a commitment to democracy. So that is why we hold you on to the obligations which you have voluntarily subscribed to. So that's the thing. And of course, we have come to our domestic instruments and the Constitution, the Electoral Act, the regulations and guidelines issued by the Electoral Commissions, and then case law, the interpretation of all this. These forms, so it's more than just that tripod of the Constitutional Electoral Act and guidelines. You must also go beyond your jurisprudence. You also look at considerations by courts, and we know people often it's a semi-joke. They say, okay, well, after the people have voted, then the judges will not have to vote, and the judges, we know the weight that the judges carry. More than 80 million people are registered to vote in Nigeria, but in the tribunal, three judges will now vote. In the appellate tribunal, 5, and ultimately 7. So the elections in 2007, for example, were determined by 4 justices of the Supreme Court voting, as against 3 members. That narrow a margin. So 7 people determined the fate of over 200 million people. That is the importance of the judiciary and the laws in this thing. I hope I'm communicating. Is everybody with me? The silence is almost like a monologue. Are we all together?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great.
Yes, sir, we
Okay,
are.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. That's good to know. Okay, so what are the rules? What are the functions? What are the responsibilities of EMB? Before you consider how important they are, so what do they do? And I'm sure if I ask, I wish this was more interactive, but that would probably be disruptive and ask everybody to unmute and answer questions, but it would have been better. I would prefer that. I'm more used to that. But let's make the best we can with virtual intervention. So it's more than just conduct elections. And I'm sure you ask everybody, what does the election management body do? Oh, they conduct elections. But as we say, elections is a process. It's not an event. It's not just that one day. So these days we look at the election cycle, we take a cycle, it's a cyclical thing. You must prepare for that one day of elections. And so there's pre-election, there's election day, and there's post-election. So before election, there are many things that the body has to do to deliver on good elections, apart from just printing ballots and stuff like that. So there's a lot they have to do. They have to delineate constituencies, for example. People forget that you must map out constituencies. 3 per state, as spelled out by the constitution in Nigeria. 3 senators have to be, so the boundaries of those senatorial districts have to be delineated. So also the House of Representatives have to be delineated, state constituencies have to be delineated. It's only wards that the INEC does not delineate. And there is wards in the area councils. But apart from that, the other responsibility lies with the CX, because while we dual, here we're concerned more with the national body, not just the state's independent electoral commission, which are established also by the Constitution of the Federal Republic. So they do delineation of constituencies, they do registration of voters, and we know how important that is. You can only vote if you are registered to vote. It's a constitutional right, okay, but it's not a Chapter 4 right. It's not considered in our own, I don't know why, but you will not find the right to vote in Chapter 4 of the Constitution. You'll find it in other places. For example, say anybody who's uh, 18 years of age and above, citizen of Nigeria, at the time that INEC has set up for registration, who goes to register was entitled to vote at the presidential elections, about to National Assembly and State Assembly elections. But you find out in other chapters of the Constitution, not in Chapter 4. So that should be noted. Then the commission also it compiles, updates, and maintains that register of voters. If you're not registered, you cannot vote. It's as simple as that. Some countries, even in West Africa, have this pattern of when you turn 18, automatically you are put on the roll. You don't have to physically go to the Electoral Commission office and get registered, or go to the field on the period limited by the commission for that purpose. But Nigeria, you have to do that. So also the registration monitoring of political parties. The electoral commissions have oversight over those countries like Nigeria where you don't have independent candidacy. So they have to register political parties, ensure they comply with it. They monitor them, monitor their finances, monitor their campaigns, and also uh, uh, monitor them, superintend all their processes and everything else. Then they conduct elections, of course. So elections and recalls. That's what's the core function. But all these things are prelude to the election. Then election day is the conduct of the polls. But in the conduct of the polls, they must also declare winners. They will make returns, count the votes, make returns, and declare winners. And there are issues that may happen on election day. Oh, this vote is invalid. Why do you add it? So administratively, they can settle minor some of those election disputes that spelled out in the Electoral Act. The Constitution gives a broad framework. The Electoral Act gives flesh and blood to the intent of the constitutional drafters. So then the prosecution of electoral offenders. Since 2006, INEC has been charged with responsibility of prosecuting election offenders. Some bodies have that, some bodies don't have that. But INEC was given that responsibility for the 2006, and that has been maintained in all the subsequent acts, including that of 2026. We'll discuss later that whether it should continue to do that or whether there's need for establishment of Election Offences Commission. That will come later. But must note that although they have powers to prosecute electoral offenders, it is not an investigative body. So it cannot investigate electoral offences. It cannot do anything. It has to rely on the police and other security agencies to do that. So it must come and wait for them to submit their reports and then decide whether there's prima facie case for prosecution. So that's that. And then you have to defend all election petitions. People don't realize that the Electoral Act of 2026 and all the electoral acts say INEC has a duty and its officers have a duty to defend all election petitions. If you look at the schedule, you'll find out where that a REC official who does not want to defend has to seek the consent, as it were, permission of the Attorney General of the Federation for them to oppose or not to defend, to oppose any election petition, even if they think what they found on the field was wrong. That's the law as it is, and I don't know why we don't dwell on it, but it's still there in our laws. Then, subsidiary to that, of course, voter education, voter enlightenment, the commissions also have to do. So, it's quite a number of things that they do. And which just brings me to discuss the different models that we have. We have 3 models of election commissions. We have the independent model that is taken by countries like Nigeria, Burkina Faso. Ghana has an independent election. So does the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, Gambia, Guinea, the 2 Guineas, Guinea and Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, and Togo. But a few of the former French colonies have a system called a mixed model. I think Chad, Cape Verde, Chad before the coup, Mali before the coup, and Senegal Basically, it means that the executive, the government is involved in the conduct of elections as well. This independent model is now probably the most popular one, but you won't find in the advanced democracies. In England, the electoral commission is a recent creation, and it does not conduct elections. Elections are still conducted by local governments, and, and many know that in the US, it's the states that conduct the elections, and that could be in many states the lieutenant governor who is the deputy, the equivalent of the deputy governor who conducts elections. It's so amazing, but that's how it is. And many did not get to realize it until Jeb Bush debacle and as governor of Florida, and Al Gore and the brother Bush, and I think 1984 elections. That issue came. So this independent model is not it's not popular amongst the advanced democracies. It was the prescription they prescribed it to us in the developing countries. But we've adopted it, and it seems to be best for us. We don't want the third, by the way, is the mixed model where you have a bit of government and a bit of independence, things like that. I won't bother to go too deeply into that. Let us concentrate on the independent ones because, well, whichever model, there are certain attributes that every election commission, everybody charged with the responsibility of conducting elections, whether they are government, people, local governments, or whatever else. And by the way, in pre-colonial Nigeria, just before independence, it was the governor general who conducted elections. He appointed people. There was no independent commission. I think the first one came with just before Federal Electoral Commission. Those ones came a bit later. The governor general will appoint people and persons up, officers, returning officers, appoint all officials. His office actually conducted the elections. Nigeria has a two-tier system, the SEC and the INEC. We here, since the title is national, so we'll concentrate only on the national nature. So basically, INEC conducts all federal, and that's an anomaly of sorts. And people who deal with electoral reform say, why should INEC conduct state elections? We should do it in such a way that it should only conduct federal elections as a federal body. So those who fall for fiscal federalism want INEC to even conduct local government elections because, according to them, CX have misbehaved and don't conduct proper elections. The governor's party always wins all states, all in elections. Well, in true federalism, I don't know. But for now, let us deal with not with normative, but with the actual. What happens now? So what happens now is that INEC conducts all federal, presidential, and national assembly federal elections. It conducts governorship and state assembly elections, and then the local government area council elections in the FCT. It is also responsible for registration of voters. That's exclusive president that regards registration of voters and registration and regulation of political parties. So after it compiles the register of voters, it gives to the CX to conduct their elections. So the CX only conduct local government elections. That's what they are limited to. They have to use the registers given to them by INEC. So I think regardless of the model of functions, the guiding principles and main attributes of a good EMB as follows. And I think we all agree with this. And just think about others. So when there's a time for interaction, please add more so that I can enhance and enrich my notes. Independence in decision making and its actions. It must be independent. It must not be liable to interference or to people dictating to it. In Decree 17 of 1998, which established INEC, in all its operations, it said that the body shall remain independent and shall not listen or take dictates from any person or individual. Unfortunately, that decree was abolished, especially with the coming into effect of the 1999 Constitution. Technically, it is only in the appointment, promotion, and discipline of its staff, just like all other bodies set up by Section 153 of the Constitution, Federal Civil Service Commission, Police Service Commission, those commissions. Apart from that, and the ability to guide its own processes and procedure, INEC is not truly independent. It's not restricted to be expressly truly independent. National Population Commission also established it's truly independent when it comes to conduct of business. So after this, maybe colleagues will go and look at the constitutional provisions again and say how independent the Population Commission is. But that kind of independence has not been extended to INEC. But whichever way, there must be a high level of independence in any electoral management body and commission. It must be impartial. It must have integrity of us, corporate integrity and integrity of officials, and its processes must enjoy a high level of integrity. It has to be efficient and competent. That you don't write into the law. Putting staff, you have to try to recruit the best, appointing people as well. It must be professional. and it must be inclusive in its consideration. It must consider all stakeholders in decision making, in appointments, and everything. It must be inclusive in every fiber of inclusivity being discussed. It has to be there. I think that's straightforward enough. Now, what do we next? We'll go to the threats to elections. What are the threats to elections in democracy? This is where it should really have been very interactive, but in the limitations that we have. Let's go. Violence is the number one threat. Violence, I think all will agree. And violence takes different forms. Not only the thugs and the people who go threatening you on election day, if you're not going to vote for my party, get out, or if you're from this tribe, don't vote here, go to your state to vote. That's violence. That's political violence. It's not only violence as we've seen in many states. We don't want XY party here. We don't want any opposition party. This place is not vacant, and they attack. They attack the offices of these people in those states. One group took over forcibly took over the office of another party, and are still in occupation a couple of years later. No, that is violence. That has no place in a democracy. Democracy is all about free choice, free movement. So it has no place. But larger wars are threats to violence. So violence is, of course, wars are the most violent of exercises. We have civil strife, we have kidnapping, we have insurgency, criminal violence. So all this, apart from political violence, criminal violence affects things. If there's violence, you cannot deploy. You cannot go to places where there's violence. You cannot, people will not come out. Even if officials are able to go, people will not come out. So that's a big threat to our elections and therefore to our democracy. Insecurity, insurgency, like Boko Haram, militants, ESN in the east. So, and it cuts across everywhere. Kidnapping. Some INEC officials have been kidnapped while going to observe elections or conduct elections on election duties. All these are big pictures, violence and intimidation and insecurity. Right. Misinformation, fake news, especially the days of AI and the way they call things, say, this man withdrawn from the election, or there's been compromise, or we've seen him to the place, and all these things have a big threat to elections. Voter inducement, and I use the term voter inducement. I don't use the term vote buying. It's a pejorative thing, it's a wrong thing, it's a bad thing. When you say vote buying, it almost reduces to like a tomato and onion sellers in the market as a legitimate exercise of goods and services for money. It's bribery, it's inducement. And we should call it by its name because we should not dignify it and sugarcoat it. That is a big threat, we all know, to our democracy. Then the fear of one party dominance. And in Nigeria, in several other countries, we are beginning to see that the space being shut in there, you're inducing people to decamp, you are doing it so that you don't want anybody to contest elections. Elections is about contestation for power, and there must be plurality of views, of ideas. It's all about governance. And if you don't have that, then that's not we have only one person, one party, no matter how popular that person is. Um, so we must watch out for one party dominance. And the Election Commission has a duty to promote multi-party democracy. Anecdote, if I pardon. In 1998, the commission was 2, 3 months old. And I said, look, let's consult with political parties. And Nigeria was founded of this, our democracy must be on multi-party democracy. So I know the chairman and I, we had to sit down, commissioners, what should happen? Is two-party system, is that multi-party democracy? What does multi-party mean? What does multi-party, is it two or more? Is it just will two suffice with multi-party? We had to write a position paper on that. And after all, we saw that now set criteria for registration of parties. And two parties scaled the hurdle. But one, AD, as it was, did not scale the original hurdle. But we said any other party that comes next, we didn't know the party that will come third that time, we'll have to, because we need multi-party and we three strong, very political parties. And that's truly the evolution of multi-party system in this republic post 1998. We must condemn use of state resources. It's not, it's a threat to our elections. If you go to my state now, the airport, there are two giant billboards. In front of the official residence of the resident electoral commissioner are also two giant billboards. It's not peculiar to say. And then at strategic places, in front of government house, and strategic places, you see giant billboards. Nothing wrong with billboards, I don't think. Although it's period for campaigning, it's not here. And they say XYZ 2027, it is settled. that is an obvious campaign message. No problem. Apart from the fact that you violated Section 221 of the Constitution, says that no association other than a political party shall campaign or contribute to the funds of any political party. You've also started campaigning before the term limited for campaigns has begun. But what bothers me the most about that is that you will see the crest, and I encourage those who live in it to see the crest of the state government on that below the logo of the political party. So those billboards are sponsored by the state government. That is not right. That is illegal. You cannot use state resources. That's against the law. You cannot use state resources to campaign or to support any political party or any candidate. So when you start using state resources, it stops things. And as you hear of contractors, for example, and it's not particular to one state. A lot of states do that. Some people and the billboards, and when individuals do that, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But when state governments or local governments or any of these federal governments starts committing resources to campaigns, that is a very serious thing. Then partisanship of the electoral commissions, lack of integrity, lack of trust, and with INEC and a lot of electoral commissions, there is a huge trust deficit, and that to me is the greatest challenge. So after 2023, rightly or wrongly, some people told their voters' cards and they were not going to vote again. What's the point and everything else? And a lot of people, that's a threat, a big threat to democracy, where people don't believe in the system, they don't believe in the judiciary, they don't believe in the electoral commission, they don't trust the state institutions responsible for security, for conduct of elections, and for interpretation of laws. That is a very worrisome thing. That is a death knell for democracy. And that is tied to voter apathy. And Nigeria is particularly bad. We keep getting it keeps going low, and that 27% is not just high enough. Then, for me, what I would term the lack of electoral justice and impunity, the failure to implement laws regarding, as I said, for good measure, in front of the official residents of the resident electoral commissioner, it's a twin billboard sponsored by the state government. How can you have that? You can't say he doesn't see it when he wakes up, he leaves his house in the morning, he goes to the airport. There are two giant billboards there. And what are you doing about it? The electoral commission has a responsibility. It's on a blind eye. I saw a video yesterday, it trended yesterday, where it was alleged that INEC offices had a campaign bus and campaign posters and banner of the president's campaign. Fortunately, I think INEC has come out to deny that no, it's a SEC, and the SEC even denied to say no, it's a campaign office which shares a common boundary with it, but they don't have any such thing. These are the things that destroy confidence, because you must be non-partisan, you must have integrity. So it's important that we do everything, regardless of party affiliations. So it should be seen to be a bit independent. It should be seen to be non-partisan. If not, democracy is impaired. It's a threat. So those are some of the things, and I think please, if you have, jot down other threats that you have recognized. I think I'll use it as an example. So the mechanisms and tools they've tried to use in building confidence and to try and improve the process. For security, for example, you have an interagency, a lot of interagency movements. It's a special committee, standing committee, and they meet every quarter. It's called the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, and it's chaired by the NEC chair and the NSA. They co-chair that institution. The Inspector General of Police, the commanders of the forces, and all the security agencies that work in civil defense, road safety, immigration, all well represented in that committee. So they go for deployment, they plan, they do budgetary issues, they coordinate effective election security issues. So that's the one. So there's a lot of collaboration and cooperation. How successful they are, well, that's a different thing. For misinformation, also it has contacted NOAA, National Information, and other relevant bodies and CSOs to try and get right information. It has also established the ICCC, that's the INEC Citizens Contact Center. It's a two-way information flow body set up by the commission, where they have a website. There's all the major Facebook, all the major platforms, Facebook, X, former Twitter, and all those things. They are well represented there. On election day, you can report incidents there, and even before registration, if there's anything you feel, you can send a report, and usually they would respond. So that's also another way of use of dissemination of information concerning the election So to stop misinformation and also to build confidence. So it uses to mobilize and to educate voters in that regards. To build proficiency, to build staff, it did capacity building. It established what called the electoral institutes for training of staff and coordinating trainings. That's what the electoral institute does. Other electoral offenses and inducement and enforcement also collaborates with security agencies. But still, we all agree that a lot more can be done. A lot more needs to be done. And so the ideas that I share with you this afternoon include the idea that there should really be real electoral reform. We're serious about things that should be real electoral reform. We must strengthen the independence of electoral management bodies and commissions and other state institutions. How do we do this? We have to look at the laws, not just this holistic, a holistic review of our laws. Some people say the appointment of EMBs. I agree with that, but my problem is that what better, and I throw this to participants, what other way? For now, the president appoints. He consults the Council of States and is subject to confirmation by the Senate. People say, why should the president be appointed? And they say, okay, no, why don't you give it to like South Africa, try and get the National Assembly to do that? But it's done. You don't necessarily throw a baby with the bathwater. Okay, fine. You are taking from one politician who represent one party and taking to the National Assembly will have made of politicians. Like 109 senators and 360 House of Reps, but they are all politicians. The argument against that was yes, but more parties are represented there. But we all know what the National Assembly is now. Right from Obasanjo's time to now, what happens? So we know how pliant some people say the National Assembly is now. Are we satisfied with the present National Assembly that can do the job of acting as a proper check? But to be fair to the Senate, one or two members have been rejected. John from Niger State, who was appointed as National Commissioner, was rejected. Then this lady, Onoche, was appointed from Delta State. They refused to confirm those two. Well, be that as it may, I've not heard of any chairman being refusing to confirm any chairman, and most members that are thrown are equally. They don't say confirm; they confirm them. They do it in a very perfunctory manner. People say there should be more investigation into this whole thing. Not there should be proper security clearance, and they should rely on proper. They open it up, let people write petitions and consider things before, not just in a perfunctory manner. Just give us confirm the nominees of the president. People say the JSC, Judicial Service Commission, but the lawyers amongst us will know what that means. We know how politicized the appointment of judges has become. We also know the controversies. But guess what? Who chairs the NJC? The Chief Justice. And don't forget, who appoints the Chief Justice? You're right, here again, the president, with confirmation of the Senate. And and then the Chief Justice and appointee of the president has a lot of say and sway in the in the JSC. And I don't think as a lawyer, I don't think it's proper to saddle the JSC or the NJC with that responsibility. They have enough on their plate dealing with the appointment, discipline, promotion of judges. And to now add this to it, although chairman and members of the commission is share similar things, they're arbiters, kind of a thing. But I am not so sure whether they, and I don't know what that independent body, if there's an independent body, who constitutes that independent body? So it's something I don't have a solution. I'd love to hear from participants, and I think I've seen a list of some of the participants. They're well-versed people. I would like to hear your own ideas as to how we can, in terms of appointment, how we can make the commission a lot more, how we can strengthen it and strengthen it, especially regarding the mode of appointment of members of the commission. That's good. Then I think we should leverage more on technology as well. That's so important. We should encourage more internal party democracy and leverage on technology so there'll be no interference. The Electoral Act as it stands, the present one is worse than the 2022 Act in terms of leverage on technology and the effect of technology, the IREV, the BVAS and stuff like that. There has to be improved electoral justice. There just has to be. And for this, we support the establishment of Electoral Offences Commission that should have power to arrest, power to investigate, and power to prosecute. But having said that, people say EFCC for economic crimes, we know what happens. It's now politicized. It's now so. When we make these suggestions, they're beautiful on paper, but of the there's a will there. We have to be careful with these things. And I think I welcome views on that as well. But as a lawyer, part of the thing that bothers me is the onus of proof and burden of proof. There are several elections, like that's what we do, where INEC certified 2 or 3 different results for each election. One, they certified the result ECHA, the result they gave to the political parties at the polling units. 2, they certified the IREV result, the one that was on IREV. And 3, they certified the ones they said they used for coalition. And in some cases, 2 or 3 of them were totally different. How? Where did you get this one you used for coalition? Yet, I, as a petitioner, will now have to come and prove that there was falsity. There was, as far as I'm concerned, prove that. In the Maghreb countries, it is the commission that will come and prove how it complied with the laws and the regulations in the conduct of elections. Don't give that burden to the people. INEC should not be a necessary defender, it should be a necessary witness, and should start every petition, come and prove how you conducted elections, and be cross-examined by the petitioner's counsel and the respondent's counsel. So this one of INEC just defending every petition, rightly or wrongly, it is very, 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 very wrong. One of the reasons why I say the 2026 Act is very bad is that there's a review of elections. Every result, within 7 days, INEC has the power to review election section 65 of both the old act and new act. Whereas in the old act, it's a blanket thing. In the new, they've restricted it. They can only review where the election officials have made a complaint, have made a petition, have petitioned. Whereas anybody in the old act could petition, even a voter, technically, even a political party or candidate. Now in the new act, it is only INEC officials. In the meantime, the complaints or the wrong, the malpractice might have been committed by those same officials. So now it doesn't have the power. It's only a candidate. That is not so good at all. Section 65, transmission of results. If the election results fail, a lot of this has been discussed in public discourse, so I won't bother much. We'll spend some time on this. It's worse than the 2022 Act. So let's be clear on that one. Our process is not so good. In conclusion, no doubt democracy in West Africa is in danger. We are in the precipice, and we have to be extremely, extremely, extremely careful how we do things. And those who conduct our elections are critical to the success of democracy and sustenance of democracy. We are drifting back to one-party states, a shrinking of the civic space and plurality of political parties. That is not good. There's a lack of faith in the judiciary, in interpreting some of these laws. Rather than a purposeful interpretation, people say it takes a very narrow, strict, legalistic, and technical interpretation of our laws. We have to watch out for that. But I won't talk more on that because we're concerned more with the Electoral Commission. There's so much interference in the work of the Commission. We have seen a bit of that, so we have to do something about that. We must strengthen our institutions that safeguard and protect our democracy. Need for that. We must undertake deep-seated electoral reforms, ensuring truly independent, fair, professional, and transparent EMBs and judiciary. We should leverage on technology to reduce human interference in the electoral process, in the registration, accreditation, result transmission, as well as collation and declaration process of our elections. Improve the legal framework and shift the burden of proof onto those who conduct elections to show that they complied with the legal regime. And must pay close scrutiny that there should be political parties as drivers of democracy. There has to be democracy. We can't have democracy without Democrats. Political parties must be democratic. If they're not democratic, you cannot have democracy. They're drivers of democracy. You can't have democracy in the larger society. So the EMB hybrid style is responsible for more than just organizing elections on election day. It is the custodian of the integrity and legitimacy of every government formed, the consequence or outcome of every election. It must therefore act with impartiality and transparency and must be accountable to the electorate. Its status, powers, and independence and impartiality are fundamental to the integrity of the electoral process. The task of developing a viable and sustainable democratic culture is a continuing one in the realization that elections are not an event but a process. All EMBs must therefore strive to improve the quality of their services, not only in the interest of today's citizens of today, but also for future generations to whom we owe the legacy of good democratic ethos, accountability, and good governance, ultimately good governance. I thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. We really appreciate your kind gesture and the time you took to take us through the electoral process and how best to achieve democracy and how best to strengthen our democracy in Nigeria. Uh, so we have a question already, but before then, please, we are online. For those of us watching from YouTube, please, if you have any question, we have one of our officers monitoring it. Please uh, put the question on the chat box, so the person will transmit it to us right away, and we'll ask our speaker to help us and attempt the question. So if you have any question and you want to ask your question, you can also put your question down on the chat box. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand and I will identify you and will give you the opportunity to speak and to ask your question directly. So please, we'll have a question. Someone is asking, with respect to appointing or the appointment of the electoral, that's the INEC chair. If we're saying that the appointment is not independent, being done by the president, so the foundation upon which his question is raised is on something that transpired on X last week. A tweet or an alleged tweet uh, 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 credited to the current INEC chair, somehow surfaced. People were able to dig it out, and where he was rooting for the current president to emerge victorious in the
Yes.
2027 election. You know, so this person is asking, based on that, and given the fact that he was the president that appointed such a person, how does it affect the democracy in Nigeria and West Africa at large? You talked about the trust issue that after the 2023 election, a lot of people threw away their PVC and they said no. Since the umpire is not being fair, and since the police, as it were, because the police were also fingered, cannot, or the security agency as a whole cannot protect voters, because you see a situation whereby voters, they go out to vote and they say, no, you're not from this state, you can't vote here. Or you're not from this locale, you can't vote here. And you are beaten, and some persons were even injured, you know. So how does this affect our democracy as a giant of Africa? Thank you, sir.
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether you're the democratic giant of Africa in terms of democracy. Or you didn't gain independence first. Ghana did. You didn't return to democracy first, and things like that. Your democratic credentials are are questionable. I have colleagues of mine went to some West African countries, and we are assisting the Electoral Commission. So we shared guidelines for elections and how we did things. And it was very embarrassing because, oh, no, 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 from Nigeria, no, 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 we don't need that. We don't know how to, no, Nigeria cannot teach us how to conduct elections. So much so for the giants of Africa. So we must get it right, really. What do I say now? Don't forget, even Republic, I told in the paper, 1990, the Constitutional Conference, the Republic of Benin, we were now trying to copy Republic of Benin. We set up our Constitutional Conference. We did not even go, we didn't even have the kind of moral authority or political will. And what happened to our Constitutional? We have had many now. How many Constitutional Conferences have we had? What has come out of this? But in Benin Republic, the independent, it was set up by the government. Government participated, but it's throughout the government. Ghana has had a situation, and a good thing that Nigeria has had. Don't forget that President Jonathan was appointed Professor Jega, because Dr. Jonathan appointed Professor Jega, yet the first election Jega, he won. The second election, he did not win it. So, yes, it's so much the quality of persons you choose. But I think they'll be a lot more careful. They will look at the quality of person they choose. It's unfortunate that, first of all, it should be non-partisan. That's very, very important. It should be a person of highest integrity. The qualifications put out in the constitution is a bit nebulous. The constitution had to be amended because prior to now, the constitution was such that you have to be a party member. You have to meet the qualifications of a person qualifying to contest House of Reps position, which meant you have to be a party member. And to be fair, in some models of electoral management bodies, all parties are represented. So partisan people are represented, all interests are represented. So depending on, but we have said no, we want non-partisan people. That's the model we have chosen for ourselves. We want non-partisan people. Now, I didn't query the mode, quite honestly. That's why I tell people, say, you tell me the best way we can appoint. For now, is the president appointing, subject to confirmation. So the check is that he should consult, just consult with Council of Ministers, sorry, Council of State. Who are the Council of State? Former the Attorney General, former Chief Justices, present governors, former heads of states, former presidents, and things like that. It's supposed to be a high caliber body that will, when you consult them, they should advise you wisely. But they have no say apart from being consulted. The Senate is supposed to act as a bulwark to ensure that the integrity and the competence and qualification of the persons being appointed meets that. But it's not there. That's the check engineer, that's the architecture of the mode of appointment engineered by the state and engineered by the Constitution. But it seems that, sad to say, I think you ask most Nigerians, they will say the Senate has become a rubber stamp. They just stamp, and for now it's dominated by one party. But I don't know what can be done. How else? I'm still looking for a model that we can get an independent. If there's an independent body doing the appointment, how do you consider independent body? Who appoints the chairman and members of that body? So these are the kind of things I do. You know, if you are back to the president, then you're saying the same thing. Is either going to appoint directly or indirectly. That's why I use the example of the NJC, National Judicial Council, and say it's the president who appoints the Chief Justice of Nigeria. He appoints judges. He elevates and ensure the elevates subject to confirmation, but the same Senate, same process, same procedure. So I really don't know. I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Please, the floor is open is now an open discussion. So please, we want other legal minds to join in this discourse. So you can unmute your mic, introduce yourself, and you contribute, in the discourse. So please, the floor is open. Okay. We have Professor Nabulile. So please, you can. Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for taking this up today. We're so pleased to have you here. Thank you so very much for the insightful discussion that you have done. There are a few points that you raised that I would like us to have a discussion on. First of all, you talked about monitoring of electoral parties by INEC and how the certain conduct may destroy confidence, and we've seen the situation with ADC over the last few weeks. In fact, somebody was saying that if you want any political party to have issues, tell Atiku and Obi to go and join the political party. Then they'll start having issues. So I don't know about that, but that was what somebody's trying to point fingers at the party in government, and something that destroys confidence. So proud to why we didn't just come up with this webinar topic. We're actually doing a study, and that study was to see, we're looking at how political parties in Nigeria, opposition political parties in Nigeria, seem to be having a lot of issues. Many of them having issues, and we came to the conclusion that perhaps independent candidacy would have been able to, ameliorate some of these difficulties, because we have a constitutional provision that says that you cannot contest the election except you are sponsored by a political party. And in the course of our research, we stumbled on a case that was decided by the African Court on Human and People's Rights. The AU has a charter, African Charter on Election, on election and democracy, election and government. Then ECOWAS has its own charter, ECOWAS Charter on Democracy, 2001 charter. Now these charters are similar. Then the African Charter has heard that other charter is a human rights instrument. Then Tanzania had the same provision in its constitution that said that you can't contest election except you are sponsored by a political party. The matter went before the African Court on Human Rights Rights, and the African Court said no, that is in violation, that provision violated the African Charter violated the African Charter on Human People's Rights, Article 13, also violated Article 5, not discrimination, violated Article 13 that has to do with election, violated the right to free association. Now, we've just filed a case at the ECOWAS court, asking the ECOWAS court to say, okay, look at this decision and make a pronouncement on this. We know that because a constitutional provision, you can't come before any court in Nigeria because constitution is the governor, but we are, as you must have heard from the introduction of the center, we basically leverage ECOWAS laws and international law for the things that we do. So we have asked in our own intervention, I've asked the ECOWAS court to say the date has not been fixed for the case and all of that, to say, look at this, perhaps independent candidature would solve some of this problem so that people, apart from the accusation that government is involved, government is doing this, even when you leave the political parties alone, they seem not to be able to organize their affairs. We've had situations where in Zafara, all the elected candidates, God said, no, you are not proper, there are no proper primaries. So we've had this, which you also mentioned, this lack of democratic culture, within political parties. Then the other matter that we have also taken up recently, which you also mentioned, there was about the distortion of confidence, is we've had, there's been this story that's been all over the place that the FCT minister gave landed properties to INEC officials, even to the extent that he said, another story said they admitted receiving the property land, but they didn't admit receiving money. So that is something that destroys confidence, and the Nigerian government, yes, the president, we just have to trust the president to appoint. But we should also trust the president. We should also be able to trust the president to take steps to ensure that the integrity or independence of INEC is not compromised. So when allegations like this are ongoing, we expected that, okay, maybe the EFCC or the ICPC will come here and say, let's see what has happened here. We haven't seen that, so we have a second case on that one. To say, okay, because under international law, if there's a violation of an international instrument, even by an individual, a private individual, it is incumbent on the state that is a party to that instrument for the state to take steps to investigate. Since the Nigerian state has not investigated, you are saying, court, can you tell us if this is a violation? So the point I'm trying to bring out is, when we talk, how do you view the issue of independent candidacy in the light of what we've seen with opposition political parties and the accusations here and there? Because politicians, the same politicians that are accusing the APC today, the moment they get power, the APC is not in power, the APC will start accusing them. So politicians seems to be what they are. I just wanted to bring that in and see your view and hear your perspective, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof. That's good expose, and good luck with the cases. Fantastic. You're right. You're very correct in your concluding remarks. A lot of questions are the same. Basically, when they win and when they're in power, they behave differently than when they're in opposition. And it didn't start today. You remember ADC. Let's go back to history. In 1990, 2000, when the formation of the AC, that later became ACN, they did the same thing. So a lot of them moved on to AC, but planted one or two people in AD who continued. You remember the Senator Akifawa Wahala and Broglo that time and things like that, and to destroy the AD because they wanted to control that. AD was the original party, but not to destroy the stranglehold of the AD in the Southwest. That was done. And subsequently, it also happened with Labour Party, as you said, when the Apampa, when Peter Obi went to Labour Party, Apampa surfaced and said, no, I'm the one in charge. It happened to APP. It happened to PDP. Earlier on, they tried to use Modu Sharif in the PDP. Later on, and then we know the weakest role in the present PDP and all that has happened and transpired there, regardless of your political thing. The interesting thing is the fact that in the last 1 week, somebody has come and said, what is it, chairman of APC or something, and is trying to create a faction in the APC. So yes, but will independent candidacy solve the issue? I have no personal view as to whether we should have or we should not have independent candidacy. At one time, what is the two political parties? Are you telling me that there are people who could not have found so-called, could not found a home amongst the plurality of political parties that we had. Maybe, maybe not. Two, they say, okay, independent candidacy. The truth is that in management, it's going to be extremely difficult managing independent. There must be a threshold for which you can or should get onto the ballots. There must be a threshold for that. So if otherwise you have a deluge and no electoral commission will be able to manage if everybody indicates I want to run for presidency. Your ballot paper in the first place will be like a toilet roll. If there are 100 people or 200 people, everybody will say, I want to. And this the so-called small parties do. So they give them basis to file petitions and things like that. And then they come, settle me. I can give you a lot of anecdotes of the experience I've had with these people. They are very, very funny. These other small parties, they're not serious in contesting elections. They contest elections so that they can get the basis, the locus to challenge outcomes. And what they do, they go and file the petition or come and settle me kind of a thing. And they do that. As for independent candidates, again, you're going to have that, not just for management, not just for, you must get some safeguards and threshold so you don't overwhelm the process. You don't overwhelm it. It's something that gives serious consideration. So there must be a basis upon which a threshold which you get onto the ballot, not the fact that you are, I say I'm interested, and that's that. Two, don't forget that every person, as the law as it stands now, who contests an election can challenge the election. So if you have 1,000 presidential candidates and you have 1,000 petitions, where are you going to get electoral justice? These are practical things you must look at. It's always fanciful to get high-sounding things and say, okay, yes, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? But you must also take a deep view about all the consequences of taking certain policy decisions. One of which, like, how do you manage the process, not just for the conduct of the elections, the printing of the ballot paper, ensuring nobody is excluded, and also the post-election issues, challenge of the elections. Should everybody who has contested an election should have a right, whether I scored 2 votes or I scored 2 million votes, I should have a right to challenge the fairness of the process and the legality of its outcome. These are some of the issues we have to really seriously consider. Otherwise, I think most people say, yeah, why not? Let us have not just multi-party, let us also have multi-candidates. Let's also have, so we can have proper choices. But it suits the bigger people when you have so many people, and they will start sponsoring people. It suits the big political parties where you have so many parties contesting. It suits them better, less competition and things like that, because the opposition will now be fractured. Don't forget, 2/3 of people did not vote APC, did not vote for Bola Tinubu in the presidential election. Tinubu did not win the majority of lawful votes cast. Because of the system, first past the post that run. If it happened in most of the other francophone countries, for example, where you must score 50%, if nobody scores 50%, there's a runoff between the other two people who will now go for a runoff. And then there's trading, horse trading, and everything else, and that one happens. Maybe that system will now, so that before you become president, at least the majority of people would have voted for you. Unlike here, where 1/3, you get 1/3, you get 8 million votes. The two leading opposition who got 6.9, 6.1 million. Kwakwanso got 1 point something million. And when you add all together, they form about 2/3 of people who voted against or voted other than those who voted for the APC candidates. I don't know how many people, but it's first past the post. So independent candidacy, well, it's something we can think about, but let us give serious consideration to all the consequences of having independent candidacy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We have 2 questions from YouTube on the chat box, so I'm going to read them out. The first question is from David Friday. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So David Friday says, okay, he's talking about live transmission of results. I think this is just a statement. Why can't the Senate approve live transmission of the election results? Poor network coverage in some location was the reason for the rejection of the proposal. So I think he's trying to make a comment with respect to the reason given by the Senate, and he's asking why can't the Senate do that, and he also answered the question. So we'll go to the next one. The next one is from Choma from YouTube. She says, INEC spent 3.08 billion naira on litigation and prosecution. But the media reported, but the media reports that 135.22 billion naira was budgeted for 2027. What impression does this give to our future democracy? You know, she was like, this is like 44 times, like is a multiplication jump, from what was budgeted in 2023 and what is now budgeted in 2027. So that's the question. Yes.
We all know that prices of things 4 years ago are not the same as the price of things now. There's nothing that you'll find that has the same price, and the exponential increase varies from one product or one service to the other. So I don't know why. I'm not part of that thing. They must have looked at it. It's important that the dispute resolution mechanism be strengthened. It's important that people should be able to go to court. And for now, the law says all petitions, all cases, pre-election cases, you must join INEC. If you don't join INEC, it's incompetent. And INEC, how many lawyers does it have? It doesn't have up to 100 lawyers. And thousands of petitions and thousands more of pre-election matters are filed in courts, during the seasonal period. So they have to defend these things, and many of them are defended by senior advocates who charge quite a bit of money. So I don't know why, or I don't know whether it's a fair recompense for their services. I can't comment on that one. But for now, as long as you have INEC being a necessary respondent in every petition, you're going to be spending a lot of money for litigation. And then also, because of security concerns, a lot of petitions are now being moved from where the things are done to the central place. Edo, for example, the last governorship election, the petition started in Benin, but because of the problems they had, they shifted to Abuja. Now you have to, the logistics of it all, you have to move all the election materials, all the balloting instruments, everything. You have to do the logistics, move all those things to Abuja. Take officials from their in situ back to wherever you are going to do that trial and hearing and everything else. You have to reproduce materials. You have to do so many things, and all those things, all that logistics costs have to be put back into it, not just professional fees. Logistics costs have to be put into it as well when you do make these movements. I think almost half of the last cycle, almost half of the government petitions end up in Abuja. So that's a lot of money, a lot of commitments to so. But I don't know whether it's a fair figure. I can't comment on that.
Well, okay, sir. I would like to ask a different question, even though you didn't talk about it.
Yes.
I am concerned with respect to conflicting decisions, judicial decisions, with respect to electoral cases in Nigeria. You go through the procedure from the Electoral Act previously 2022, but now 2026. You take your time and read it, the guideline provided by INEC and everything, and based on the jurisprudence, the Supreme Court decisions on that, the Court of Appeal decisions on that, then when we come to another election cycle, the Supreme Court is now probably deciding something different without no strong basis, as it were. So does that, because the judiciary is a strong actor in our democracy, whether we like it or not, it is a strong one of the pillars of our democracy. So if actions like that come from the judiciary, what does it tell for our democracy? It's not just INEC now, because INEC will tell you go to court, because that was the slogan in 2023. Go to court. So when you go to court, the court will give it another interpretation. And I feel, because I interacted with a lot of young persons that did participate in the voting in 2023. A lot of people had a lot of confidence that something was going to come out of the 25% what's it called? The 25
Fred, FCT,
the winner,
Fred in the
that's the
FCT.
FCT issue with respect to 25%, given the previous jurisprudence. So a lot of people were like, okay, now let's see what the court is going to do. Will the court order a run in Abuja or something? Let the court do something. Let the court be innovative. Let the court just think out of the box. When you read judgment from the likes of previous legal luminaries, not calling name, but okay, I enjoy reading judgment of the likes of Obaseki, JSC, as it then was, likes Idigbe and other justices. You see that whenever they're delivering judgments, they go outside the box. They do a comparative analysis. They bring from this country, bring from this jurisdiction, and even when they come to a conclusion, you as the reader, you will be convinced that this jurist did a good work. But now you just when you read the judgment, you're even more confused. The judgment itself will even confuse you. So how does that strengthen our democracy?
Okay, great. Good question. But two things. First of all, I will answer you, but it's beyond the province of our paper now, because I'm dealing more with the commissions itself. So, but the opportunity as a reason for me to answer, I will try to answer it, but it's way beyond. Now you are dwelling into the role of the judiciary. And I think if you organize a seminar on that, actually, a webinar should go on that. That's the next one. You should think about the judiciary, because I agree with you that I don't agree that there are so many conflicting judgments in the superior courts, not in the Supreme Court, but there are conflicting judgments, especially of course of jurisdiction, has hampered our democracy in many ways. I agree with that. But on conference of the PDP is one, for example, you rush go and get one order, so you are conflicted because one says do, the other says don't. So in obeying one, you disobey the other. So that's a problem. That's one of the serious things we should discuss. And when you organize something on the judiciary, it's something we have to talk about. Regardless of how many times the courts have tried to intervene or try to say it shouldn't be done, at every cycle, you get that. And very soon, when the primary starts, you are going to get a lot of forum shopping, conflicting orders of court. That definitely is there. But to be fair to you, there are some odd decisions of the Supreme Court that have come without overruling previous decisions. They seem to depart from them. There are a few examples of that, and we use them. But we should also put things in context. The laws have changed. I said this 2023 is a very bad act. I'll give you another example. I'll give you one or two examples. The grounds for presentation of the petition have been reduced. In 2006, we had 4 grounds: unlawful exclusion, we had malpractice, we had non-qualification, we had not the candidate not scored majority of lawful vote. Now you only have 2 grounds. So the ground of disqualification or non-qualification, which is dealt by 2 different sections of the Constitution, that the person was not qualified or that he submitted a forged certificate to INEC. Now, these are not self-executing sections of the Constitution, but they are no longer grounds upon which you can challenge an election. Sadly. And the courts, the judges will tell you that, well, we can only interpret the law, we cannot expand the law, we expound it, we cannot expand it. So if the legislature have said now that, you cannot bring this under any other ground, and guess what? What's making it worse is the fact that as a lawyer, if you take a case and put it out of those grounds, if you go beyond those 2 grounds, you can be fined 5 million naira, while the political party will find 10 million naira. The same thing in an intra-party dispute. We agree that sometimes some useless cases get to court, but for exercising your rights and practice of your profession, you can be fined 5 million naira. So on 2 grounds, 2 sections, 83 and I think 160, I can't remember the section, but the 2 sections in the new electoral act where a lawyer undertaking his profession can be fined. They're like ouster clauses, and the sword of Damocles hanging over the head of the parties and of the counsel who brings the case to court. So yes, but people agree that they should be more purposeful, especially the Supreme Court, the policy court, more purposeful in interpreting the constitutional provisions, be more liberal. But they tell you, no, they're strict constructionists. Yes, you're right. The days of Okuta, the likes of the Obasekis, the Okutas, the Eshors, to an extent, the white things are a bit different now. They have different approaches. Well, it's a judicial issue that there's a finality to the decisions, and that gives it an air of infallibility. But we cannot question it. We just hope there'll be more certainty in the laws. There'll be more of certainty. Really, we should know what the law says and what the law is. But even without that, there's a particular judge in Abuja, intra-party involving the PDP. He gave judgment. The Supreme Court lambasted it that he shouldn't have done that in 2020. In 2023, the same party, the same people went to that same court. He gave judgment and he still went to the Supreme Court. And what has happened to it? There are many like that. That's not very unusual. I think we should question and we should ensure that constituency also tries to do something to sanitize things a bit in terms of the law practice and judicial interventions in political cases. It's something that we should look at. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. So the floor is still open. I can see my able PhD co-supervisor, Professor Aibovo. Good afternoon, sir. So the floor is still open. We can all contribute to this very important discourse. And how can we strengthen our democracy in Nigeria? So I can also see Professor Nwele. I can see Dr. Osa Gusa. The floor is open. Okay, if you want to speak, you can unmute your mic. I think someone is trying to speak. Okay, I think there is a new question. Somebody is asking, I don't know, a question. He said, is there a way our politicians can be reformed?
Good question. I wish I knew a way. So anybody who knows the way should tell us. So we need it very, very much so. Because as I told you, there are different models. And some of the models, they don't have independent bodies. You have local governments. Can you attempt to use local government employees now to conduct elections in this country? Not election management body, already local government, only one local government. Kotangora local government will now conduct elections, and that's simply the officials will come, the chairman, and they'll come and conduct elections. So it's as much as we try, the legal framework is very important, but at the same time, trust and confidence can only be built where there's an independent, impartial kind of person, professional doing it. But it doesn't really. It shouldn't really depend on who conducts the election, but the mindset of the people who do. Are they prepared to conduct in accordance with the rules and obligations? Exactly. That's really the issue.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, any more comments? The floor is still open. Okay, you can unmute, sir.
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Okay, thank you, sir. You have the floor.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please. You can go ahead, sir.
Thank you. It's quite an interesting topic with Nigerian democracy. How do we strengthen Nigerian democracy? My question is, first of all, I believe Nigeria is a country of law, but not of order. Therefore, I would like to ask the honorable persons in this forum, in that circumstances, how do we enforce the mechanisms of democracy to ensure that politicians, who are the main or primary stakeholders in Nigerian democracy, are held accountable, whether locally, whether regionally, or internationally? So that is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think embedded in your question is the answer, which you expect really. Democracy is all about accountability, and in my paper, I did mention impunity. That is one of the banes of our democracy. That there's no accountability. People are not held accountable for a lot that happens, and that's one of the first steps we said is a set up an electoral offenses commission that will have powers to arrest, powers to investigate, and powers to prosecute. Whether it will serve as an independent commission above political considerations is a different issue. It's a very different issue, but there must be accountability. And what we do now is a few of friends and colleagues run CSOs and have connections with international organizations. And you heard Prof say, for example, now they are going to ECOWAS court. So we, as part of the accountability drive, we tend to invite, and all major embassies, by the way, always apply to be accredited as election observers to observe things for themselves. And so we take these things and say, look, there's the International Criminal Court, and some people, because of violence related to elections or otherwise, even leaders have been summoned before the International Criminal Court. There has to be some level of accountability. If your domestic courts will not do what they're set up to do, then there should be some regional or international bodies where you all have some level of responsibility. Embassies generally help us a great deal in talking to people in positions of authority, whether be they election managers or candidates. And people like the Coups Center are very well respected, the Committee on Peace. So all these people have contact with international organizations, international persons, and we want to use and continue to leverage on those in case we cannot get sufficient results and resolve domestically. So that's it's so important.
Okay. Thank you very
I don't know
much.
whether that answers something. Answers that's your question anyway.
Mr. Howard, did you hear that? You can unmute. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
My take on this is that I think it has come to the time in Nigerian history as a giant of Africa, as is popularly known, that we are able to demonstrate that characteristics. And one of those is to be able to hold our politician or political individuals accountable. Like the Honorable could you please repeat the gentleman's name, please? Thank you. As he said, those if we are not able to achieve that within the Nigerian domestic law, because that quite clearly is becoming very evasive, we are unable to find reasonably in a legitimate setting where Nigerian politician has been held accountable, not along party lines, but we are beginning to look at the possibility of taking it further. What are these laws that is within the Nigerian constitution that we help Nigerians both locally and in the diaspora to be able to enforce as a citizen mandate to hold their politicians accountable in a democratic setting using democratic means, as against what most Nigerians do when Nigerian visitors are within the international community outside Nigeria, and they harass them inappropriately and stone them or curse them. But there must be within the Nigerian constitution what and how we can be able to do that in such a way that it's legitimate, it's recognized by both domestic law and international law. Thank you, sir.
The very first thing is to vote them out. We don't like what they do. Vote them out. But how easy is it to do that? That's why we're talking about electoral management bodies now. How fair are they? How independent are they? How do they represent the outcome of elections? Do they represent the wishes of the people? That's the first thing. So if you're a governor, you're a president, you lose your immunity. And when you lose your immunity, you can be prosecuted for any criminal offense that you may have committed. You can be investigated, you can be convicted for any criminal offense. Will the political will be there? I don't know about that. And also, apart from the governors and the presidents, no other person enjoys immunity. So technically, in the course of my paper, I gave you an example of the state where the state government is using resources, a criminal offense, using state resources to campaign for a particular candidate. That's a criminal offense. What are we going to do about that? If you report to INEC, actually, you can compel the Electoral Commission to enforce the law, to prosecute those responsible for doing that one. But the minute you do that, they will harass you. People are afraid. The threats will come. For the opposition, you are this. You are in my state. You're seeing things where the houses are suddenly marked for destruction, more because of their political stand than for breaches of any building code. But and when you join the winning party, all your sins are forgiven. Remember that statement. So this reinforces impunity upon impunity. It just goes on and on. And I'm not particular about one particular state or political party. A lot of our parties are equally guilty, especially as the moderator had said earlier, guilty regardless of which party you belong to. Intolerance. In Kaduna, there's some other states where they destroyed houses of people, not for any viable reason, but of course, if you breach the building code, your house will be brought down. Obviously, that's the proper thing. You do so. Those abroad know that the decent society will not do so. They will fine you. You can even go to serve a term imprisonment for incarceration for that kind of a thing, but not for whimsical things, not for political reasons. You should not use law. So a lot of CSOs are very good at doing that. Serap in different fields, for example, let me just say Serap has done so much to improve us. Like late Ganifa, used to do a lot in terms of that. But we don't have people like that anymore, ready to commit their time, their resources, and it takes boldness actually in the space is being closed up. It takes a lot of boldness to actually want to do that. But you must make sacrifices. It's eternal vigilance, and sacrifices must be made before you get any improvement in any society. Sometimes we speak, and people say, careful, though, be careful, though, don't do this, so these government people, but things have to be said. So we must ensure we have that commitment, and then we can use all legitimate means to try and get them to do what has to be done. But don't forget, if the state law, their state attorney general will come and file a nullity prosecution and withdraw any criminal case. The federal attorney general can also do the same thing. It happened when I was director of legal in NEC, who filed a case where people came from Osun and went to start doing things in Anambra. They were stopped and apprehended in Imo, and we charged them to court. But the state attorney general then now entered a nullity prosecution. I would say it was withdrawing the case. I said, no. First of all, it's a federal offense. And secondly, I'm prosecuting, I have power to prosecute. But that case was on, and there was going to be a ruling, but I left the department and I left the commission before ruling was given. So I don't know what happened in that particular instance. So there you are.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. So we are gradually coming to the end of today's webinar. We'll just take one last question before we I'll invite the Executive Director of Center for Community Law. Okay, I can see Agusa. But Agusa, before you have the floor, there is a question here from Omar Usman. He's saying that what are the practicability of taking away the power of appointing the INEC chair for building trust and strengthening of our democracy and the electoral system in Nigeria? I believe what Mr. Umar is trying to say is the practicability of taking it away from the president. Just like you rightly said, who are we going to vest this power now in? Not just to take it away from the president, but over time, we've had the issue of trust But you can also comment on that again. So he's asking how that can build the democracy in the electoral system in Nigeria. You
Well,
can
I told you I
take.
didn't have the answer, and I was hoping that contributors, participants, will give me an answer, or we'll debate possible answers, and then see the pros and the cons, and then maybe we can reach some kind of consensus as to who should do it. As I said, it's not practical presently. You can give it to the Senate President or the National Assembly, but would you want to do that? Is that a better option? Some say give to the Chief Justice. I'm not too sure the Chief Justice of the country, who's an appointee of the president. I'm not too sure we should saddle judges with those kind of politically
Responsibility.
sensitive appointments, because chairman of INEC is a politically sensitive appointment. And don't forget, INEC always has cases in court. Always. All the governorship cases end up in the Supreme Court, and INEC is a party to all those cases. I really don't know. Some people say you advertise the job and then it's sifted, and then the State Assembly or National Assembly now does the appointment after sifting the things. But they can work from answer to question. I don't know anybody or any method yet that will be a fairer mode. I personally don't know any, or practical mode of appointment. I don't know of any.
Thank you very much. As we ponder on that, Agusa, you have the floor.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful lectures. But I want to make a comment with respect to this last question and also ask a question as well. For the appointment of the INEC chairman, one of the things I've thought about, I felt, okay, I do not know how he's actually selected or nominated, because I believe that INEC have several people that are within the organization. But I feel like, okay, a slot can be given to each state to bring at least one person that is a member of INEC that is under the organization. Then Nigerians get to maybe do an online voting or casting for our preferred candidate out of the 36. Because that's actually fair, because I noticed that most of the time, apart from Jonathan time, the president tends to always want to appoint someone that is either his tribe or from the north. I've not really seen where other tribes tend to be in such sensitive positions. So it's more like it just aligned to a particular region in the country, which I still believe will not bring about fairness. Then additionally, my own question is, sir, would you say Nigerians are too calm in accepting what is being given to them as democracy by those who should be representing us? Will you say we are too calm? But I feel that, because, for example, in 2023 election, I participated. But I'll be surprised that from that polling unit, foreign observers will still report that it was free and fair. And I also noticed that if there's violence in a particular polling unit, the foreigners or the foreign observers are not always victims. For some reason, they are just shielded. For some reason, they just have immunity against the political violence. It's only we, the Nigerians, that tend to be victims of such occurrences. So, do you think we are too calm in accepting what is being given to us as democracy in Nigeria? Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I think there's a break in transmission, part of your second your question, the second part of your intervention. But basically, you're saying whether we're too calm. I can answer that. I'm a lawyer and an establishment kind of a person, in the sense that I think we should use the instrument of law to achieve whatever we want to achieve. So I don't know any other ways we can address the shortcomings of the process. I think we should be enlightened, we should enrich ourselves in terms of knowledge. If it means marching to the assembly, National Assembly, whatever else, and we have to do that, yes. But fella addressed these things more than 30, 40 years ago. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to make sacrifices. Nobody wants to do things. Your father is at home. Your mother is at home. They will tell you, oh, you don't do this one. I've not gone to school. I've not finished this. I've not achieved what I want to achieve. So nobody wants to take those kind of risks. And demonstrating in Nigeria carries its risks. Even before the violence that attended the NSAS demonstration, people were being shot, not because they were being violent, but because of the resistance to our people are not used to exercising their rights of freedom to move, to assemble, and things like that. Our governments, after many years of military dictatorship, in the leadership, the psyche of the leadership, they still believe we can do things on democratic ways. So people say do everything you do in Nigeria with sense. You don't want your life cut short, and nothing will happen. What has happened to NSAS, especially those innocent people that were killed? What has happened to the whole thing? But at the same time, the younger days will say the blood of the martyrs will water the plants of freedom. Right? So for it to blossom, you have to water it, you have to tender it, and sometimes it takes blood of the martyrs to do that. Sadly, but it's the way it is. As to but your premise on the first comment, I don't think is quite right. Professor Jiga is the first Northerner to be appointed as chairman of INEC, and he was appointed by Goodluck Jonathan and German from the South. And then when he finished, admittedly, Buhari appointed Yakubu from Buhari from Northwest, appointed Yakubu from the Northeast. And then we have what we have now. Amopita technically is from the North Central, from Kogi State, from North Central, whereas Tinubu is from the Southwest. They might be of the same ethnic lineage, but they're from different geopolitical zones. But prior to now, most chairmen of INEC were actually all were Southerners, mostly South, and what's now to be term Southeast. So going from Ani in Fedeco, Justice Ovio Whiskey in Fedeco, they were from South. So Ani from, I think, Cross River, Whiskey from them Bender, which is now Delta State. So in INEC itself, from conception, it was just Sakata from Edo, followed by, when he died, Dr. Abel Gobadia from Edo. Then thereafter, Professor Maurice Iwu from Imo. So throughout the INEC, 3 Southerners have occupied and 2 Northerners have occupied the position. And don't forget that it was the military regime that appointed Justice Akpata. Abdul Salam's regime appointed Justice Akpata. But it was a Obasanjo's regime from Southwest who appointed, after Justice Akpata died, appointed Dr. Gubadia from South. So contextually, that's the correct position of things. It ought not to matter where you come from. It's the integrity and competency of the person that should really determine the flow. And don't forget, chairman is one person. There are 12 national commissioners. They constitute the commission, and there are 2 from each political zone. And yes, recs, there are 36 recs, appointed 1 from each state. But you are suggesting that the chairman be appointed from an elective online poll. Who's going to organize that online poll? INEC or some other body? Whether it's online or offline, who's going to organize that election to select the people? And elections don't necessarily produce the best candidates for certain positions. And the same thing, you have to say the Chief Justice in Nigeria maybe should be appointed by an election by maybe lawyers or something like that. So it's popularity, not necessarily competency. You are suggesting should not determine who the next chairman of the commission should be. These are some of our fraught. Is nobody will say that Tinubu is the most competent or the best person in Nigeria. But is the majority of people who voted seem to say he was the best person for the job. So popularity and competency are not necessarily one and the same thing. And in terms of your popularity, some hard decisions have to be taken. You might be a fantastic chairman, take hard decisions, but not be popular. So I don't know, but it's something worthy of further consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. We've come to the end of today's webinar. I will invite, okay, there's one more question, but I'll invite, after these questions, I will invite our Executive Director, Professor Emerson Abulele, for the vote of thanks. The last question says, is there no law that can make the electoral body, that's INEC, really independent without any interference, within the Nigerian context?
Well, the Constitution envisages an independent body and has put certain things in place to make it independent. But the fact that you're independent in your finances, for example, you're not truly independent. The law, that's another thing with this electoral act. I'll keep coming to it. The law, for example, says it has to be independent, but it must get its funding from government.
Yeah.
And how does that? It submits a budget to the government. A government usually the Ministry of Finance will just give you an envelope and say, this is how much we can afford. You go, and there are conflicting priorities. You go and know how you do the things to say what your priorities are. The 2022 Act said that the budget must be approved and funds released to the Commission at this latest 1 year to conduct any election. The 2026 Act has amended that, I say 6 months. When I said it's a bad law, this is one of the reasons again I say it's a bad law. I managed to shorten the timeline to 6 months. But the Procurement Act says that you cannot procure, you cannot do anything unless and until you have the funds in your coffers before you can award any letter of appointment. Let's say Beavers machines. Beavers machines are not bought off the shelves. They're not like a supermarket product. You just go and say, give me 10 and buy it. You have to go to the original equipment manufacturers, give them your specifications, and then they will do that. But you cannot do that unless and until you have these funds in your. And 6 months is not enough for you to go to Hong Kong or China, or wherever it's manufactured, give them the specifications, then open letters of credit and everything, transfer funds and everything else. They manufacture, then ship in the country. One day, a freight is additional cost. And somebody asked about cost of elections. Cost of education, for example, which is additional cost. So it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult. You can have independence on paper. You don't have financial independence. The auditor must audit your accounts. It's taxpayers' money. You shouldn't be allowed to just be giving taxpayers' money freely like that. So there's certain constraints to independence. But in your operations, in your conduct of elections, you should really be independent. You should not go cap in hand begging the Minister of Finance to release funds to you, or beg the leadership of the National Assembly, please consider this my budget. Give the budget, pass the budget, ministry release the funds to these people once that they are appropriated. Because one of the constitutional amendments, I think the second alteration or third alteration, made its funding chargeable to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So you just want to get and you just go there. That's what you have to do. It's trying to CRS. Practically, whether the positions were allowed to be truly independent, even if the independence is guaranteed, and then the nature of the people you appoint as members of the commission. The appointing authorities, as just a quarter in his swearing in said, look, yes, we have heard the saying that he who pays the piper should dictate the tune. But he said, I hope you will not interfere in my administration. You have to learn. The piper has to learn. The piper is going to blow his tune according to his conscience. You have to learn to dance to the tune the piper plays. The fact that you're appointing me does not give you a right to tell me how to do this job. If you so, take your job, kind of a thing. So the caliber and quality of people you will also determine the independence of any institution. That's how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these robust responses. Thank you so much, and also for the lectures. I think Prof is here for the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much to everyone for finding time to join us again for one of our monthly webinars. We are so grateful to have you, so grateful for your participation, and we do hope that this conversation will go a long way to strengthen our democracy indeed. I'm reserving the big thank you for Mr. Osaze-Uzzi for taking time to join us. He has a busy schedule, but he had to shift things around to ensure that he obliges us today. We are so grateful to you, sir. Thank you so very much, sir, for your humility. Thank you so very much for sharing knowledge with us. The conversation continues on our YouTube channel. It's going to be posted on YouTube, and that's where the main conversation will continue. So we are so grateful, sir, and we do hope that we will call upon you next time, that you oblige us. We are grateful to you. Thank you so very much for all that you do. May God bless you. May God bless you all for participating. Michael, thank you so very much for